Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, the channel where we go through the good and bad of everything nerdy to make sure you spend your time on the best of the best. In today's video, I'll be doing a review and how to play video on Disney's Shadowed Kingdom from Mondo Games, so let's get into it. So Disney's Shadowed Kingdom is a two-player cooperative card game centered around deduction, memory, and luck. So you're playing in a kingdom that is slowly being taken over by shadow and darkness, and your goal is to restore the realm with the help of various Disney heroes by collecting enough magic essence to save the kingdom. But with that said, let's jump into how you play the game so you have a better understanding on the mechanics and how it works, and then I'll jump into my review after that. Alright, so these are the various components for Disney's Shadowed Kingdom. You've got different Disney character cards, you've got your magic and shadow tracker. You have shadow cards, which are kind of the bad cards, which will increase the shadow tracker. You have magic cards, which are the good cards, which will increase your magic tracker. You also have the wish card, which allows you to immediately cancel the effect of a discovered card. And then the doubt card, which is kind of an additional card you can add to the game to make it a bit harder. You'll also have various location cards, in which you just simply read what the card says and then take the action on the card. And then you've got different reference sheets, which just simply show you what you can do on your turn. And so when you set up, typically players will sit across from each other, but just for this video, I'm going to put them side by side so you can see them all at the same time. All right, so the first thing that you want to do is to set the magic and shadow tracker in the middle of the table where both players can access it. And then you'll set both of the tokens here at the 0 position. You want to also put the wish card face up where all players can easily access it. And depending on what mode you're playing, if you want to play an easier version of the game, you can remove doubt from the game. Or if you want to play a harder variant, you can include that in the game. But for now, we'll walk you through the easy version so we can leave doubt out of the game. The next thing you want to do is shuffle the Disney Hero deck and deal 1 to each player. This will be their hero for the game. Next, you'll take the remaining 20 cards, shuffle them, and then deal each player 10 cards. At this point, each player will just simply choose a deck they want to play with. So they'll start with those cards. At this point, both players will draw 2 cards and they can look at them, but not show each other. And then they'll put them face down in the middle, forming the kingdom grid. At this point, you decide who will be player 1 and who's going to be player 2. Player 1 will draw 2 cards from their draw pile into their hand, and then they can also look at them. And player 2 will draw 1 card, and they can also look at that, but not show the other player. Again, if you haven't done so, make sure each player has a reference card, and then you're ready to start the game. So from this point, we move on to how to play. So when it comes to how to play, we'll start with player 1, and what they do is they're going to select 1 card in their hand, and they'll add it to the kingdom grid face down. And this is going to determine what card their partner is going to have to reveal and play. So at this point, there's really 2 options that you can do to add a card to the grid. You can either push a card towards your partner and have it be discovered, or you can push a card to the left or right out of the kingdom to have your partner dispel that card. So again, I would place this card as player 1 in secret into the grid. So I don't know what player 2 cards are at this point, but I'm going to give one back to him. So let's say I just make them discover. So I'll push this in, and player 2 will now draw this card, which is magic. So that's actually really good. That's what we want to draw. And so what this does, we'll add 1 spot up on the magic token. And now they need to shuffle their hand and their discard pile into their deck, and they'll draw 2 new cards. So again, what happens when someone discovers a card, they must immediately flip it over and play that card, so they read the text aloud and take the action on the specific card. After you complete the action, you put that card into your hand. So in that last case, magic was kind of a special ability where it made me shuffle my deck and draw 2 new cards. Normally that doesn't happen. If it was some kind of other card, it would just simply play the card and then you draw it into your hand. Now the other type of action is dispelling cards. And so how this works, instead of pushing a card towards a player and shifting the row, you could actually take any of the sides and you'll push a card out of the play. So let's say I did this, Now this card would go to this player. Happens to be a shadow, so that's great. That's something we actually want to get rid of. And then this would go into that player's discard pile. At this point, what happens is now the other player needs to draw a card and immediately play that card. So looks like, unfortunately, it was a shadow card. So we need to raise the shadow tracker up 1. And then we're going to follow what the card says. So you shuffle your hand, discard pile, and then draw 2 new cards. 1, 2, and then you formed a new hand. At this point, players will just continue taking turns back and forth until either the shadow or the magic on the shadow magic tracker token reaches the final position. If the players reach the magic end first, they win. If they reach the shadow end first, they lose. One other thing to note is that if you happen to come upon a location card, pay attention to where it actually is, because it might match what one of your Disney hero cards lists as a specific location being discovered. So each Disney hero has their own unique ability that you can use in addition to what's listed on the card. Also note that you don't have to use the hero ability, only if you want to. A couple other things to note is that the shadow and magic trackers cannot go below 0, so you don't need to worry about that. Also, at any point in the game, players can use the wish card to cancel the effects of a discovered card. So if you drew a doubt card, if you drew a shadow card, if you drew one of the location cards and you didn't want that action to happen, you could use the wish card to cancel that out. But again, it can only be used once for the game. Another note is that when you are playing cards, you need to add the card that has been in your hand the longest to the kingdom grid, not one that was just played. As far as variants for the game, if you wanted to make an easier game, you can play in tutorial mode, and you do this by taking 2 shadow cards and removing them from the game, and all the other rules you play as normal, except for instead of starting with decks of 10 cards, each player begins with 9. If you want to play in advanced mode, that's more difficult, you add in the doubt card, and now you'll have 21 cards to distribute instead of 20, and so when you do this, you'll do 1 deck of 11, 1 of 10, and then the deck that has 11 cards is the starting player. Beyond that, that's really how the game works. If you have questions, consult the rulebook or feel free to drop a comment below. But now that you have a better understanding of how the game works, let's jump into my review. Well, now that you have a better idea on how the game works and functions, how do I actually feel about it? Well, this game is pretty simple to learn, and it's also quick to play, which is nice. Again, like I said in the beginning, the game really focuses around memory and deduction and remembering what cards are on the table, and then also strategizing your plan after that. The game can get a little bit tricky though, because you aren't technically allowed to communicate with the other player. And so sometimes we found that you do your best intention to put a card down in hopes that they would dispel it or save it, and then often they would end up doing the opposite. But again, you team up with various Disney characters that will often give you extra insight, like revealing your hand to the other player or seeing theirs, or just having a better idea of what cards are coming, so you can better strategize as a team even though you're not talking. Now the game itself kind of has a flow to it, where in most cases you don't have a ton of decisions to make on your turn, because a lot of the time you're instructed to just simply play the oldest card in your hand, and so more often than not that's leaving you just 1 card to play, but you still get the decision to either pass the cards forward so your player has to discover one, or you can try and dispel a card as well. But again, like I said, there is some light strategy elements to the game as you play, but overall I kind of feel like the game is better suited for a younger crowd. So the game says 8+, and I think you probably want to stick close to that age range. I think as adults you'll get some fun out of the game, you'll be able to play a few times, but after that there's not really a ton of strategy involved with it, so it may seem a little bit repetitive for adult players. But again, I think it could be a great addition to your game library if you're playing with kids, or maybe you want to get this game for your kids and let them play together. Could be a nice activity too, because you don't talk while you're playing the game. So if you want some quiet time around the house, you could pick this up for your kids and get them to play the game. Also, it is a Disney themed game, but I think it's pretty light on the themes, where it does include different Disney characters kind of fit into this medieval kingdom realm. And it also had a little bit of feel to like Kingdom Hearts, the game series, where you're battling like the Heartless and the Darkness. Kind of had that feel to it as well. Other than that though, I don't really feel like it had a lot of tie-ins with Disney lore or Disney background besides having like a Magic Kingdom and then the couple Disney and characters included in the game. The game isn't super expensive though, so again, I think it could be a great stocking stuffer or a game you might get your kids, as they'll probably get more enjoyment out of it and face more of a challenge with the memory and deduction aspects of the game versus playing it as an adult. But let me know in the comments below if you've played this game before, if you think it's cool, if you think you'll pick it up now that you've learned more about the game. Let me know in the comments below. If there's other great Disney games I should check out, let me know in the comments below as well. So again, guys, one thing that's also really cool is that if you go to mondoshop.com and use the promo code NPG, you'll get 10% off games and puzzles, so including this game. So if you want to pick up a copy, there'll be a link in the description below where you can do so. And again, just use that code NPG at checkout. So if you want to check out this game or other games and merch from Mondo Games, definitely go ahead and check that out and help support the channel as well. But again, if you guys like this video, be sure to smash that like button as it really helps out the channel. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications and get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out. If you'd like to help us support the channel, pick out content and more, become a patron of ours at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And if you'd like to plug into our live streams and Let's Plays we do on the channel, you can follow us on Twitch at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Twitch. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.